There we go. Now it's live.
It's live. Let me get the link before somehow it disappears. Um, oh goodness, that was our hardest one yet.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't understand why that was so difficult.
Not either, and I don't understand why it wouldn't go on air before. And oops, sorry. Um,
And then I created like three different Hangouts on air, but it
yeah,
wouldn't like connect me to a video to like start them. I was like,
yeah.
I want to start them.
It's definitely, it's definitely a, it's supposed to be user friendly, but it's not. It's very
I
hard.
I was confused. That's for sure.
Mhm. Ugh. So I'm guessing your game was canceled.
Yes, we are snowed out right now.
Do you have that much down there? It's not that much.
No, it's a little dusting, but it's coming down pretty hard right now.
Yeah, same.
How's it up there in Boulder?
It's doing all right. It didn't start snowing really until around 6, I think, is when I
Oh,
got up and it was still a little bit of a rain.
we had
And
we had a dusting last night and then it turned back to rain. And
yeah,
then now the grass is covered, but the roads aren't sticking.
yeah, that's kind of what's happening down here. But it's definitely like salt and pepper kind of grass. It's not all the way covered at all.
Hmm.
So, yeah, who knows? We better not have a snow day. That's all I care about.
Goodness gracious. Absolutely not. Because then they'll make us go an extra day.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy about. We already have 2 to make up. So,
Right?
all right, so I guess we can get started on
I
on
suppose.
this. And I shared the document. I don't know if you're able to see it.
I did pull it up. You shared it with me on Google Docs, so that's perfect. So I have her candy descriptors and
So, as you probably see, they're really long because I guess I'll just start with telling a little bit about her. Well, you have Julia as well.
Mhm.
But when I looked up her scores, they were all level 1, and I feel like she has made so much growth this year,
Mhm.
and that she really is in that level 2, almost into a level 3. I feel in some areas of her abilities because now, did you have her last year too?
I did not. This is my
Okay.
first year with Julia. I
I
believe she's a third grader, right?
Yeah, she's a third grader, and I think this is like her second year here.
Yeah, it is her second year here. Um, I didn't have any second graders last year, so
Oh, you're
this is
right.
my.
You're totally right. She is yeah, you wouldn't have had her. Um, but I just feel like these scores that she tested into don't reflect her abilities right now. That's why I put a lot of level 2 stuff up. Because I feel like even though she started out on a level 1 at the beginning of the year, she's progressed so much, especially with working with Amy. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um, I mean, even from the beginning of the year, one of the supports I had in place was giving her math in English and Spanish.
Uh-huh.
And now that Spanish page has completely gone away, which is crazy to think about that
That's
like she doesn't
awesome.
even ask for it and she gets upset when I do give her it in Spanish. So
Oh, that is wonderful. And I know at home she has a very supporting family environment, it seems like, from when I've met her mom and um, who I think they speak only Spanish at home,
that's
but
great.
her mom is just a very encouraging person from what I can tell on my
Mhm.
couple of encounters that I've
Yeah,
had.
there was a stretch where Julia wasn't doing her homework and I didn't even bring it up to mom. Mom brought it up that she wasn't doing her homework and what was going on and why wasn't she doing her homework. And
Yeah,
so that got switched pretty quick.
that's awesome though that she has that person who's kind of pushing her.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because even just recently, I've also started seeing Julia switch from socially speaking in Spanish the majority of the time, and she does still. I
Hmm.
now see her speaking in English to her friends too, like Rose and Mariana and stuff. So
Hmm.
that's pretty cool to see too. Just, it's cool to see how much she's progressing throughout this year, I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
making
but
a lot of growth.
yeah. But I guess to start out with her, her can-do descriptors, she tested it on a level 1 for listening, speaking, and also in writing.
Hmm.
So with level 1s, and I saw this more at the beginning of the year, she could, point to pictures with listening and, follow the one-step directions with gestures kind of stuff. And, she was able to identify things and work through things. But there had to be a lot of scaffolds in place. And it's interesting to see how we've been able to take some of those scaffolds away. At least I have, kind of
Hmm.
like you were saying with the math. Um, but I even see her now with her listening skills, like being able to do leveled content too, on the WIDA can do descriptors because she's able to organize, content, pictures and objects from oral descriptions. She's
Hmm.
able to arrange things. She's following 2 and 3 step sometimes directions. And she's just able to take in a lot more of, because of her listening abilities, being able to, they're kind of going up. And I don't know if you see that in math.
No, absolutely, for sure. That especially like the two-step
Mhm.
oral directions and following those. Uh,
Yeah.
she's
And,
early.
I think what's awesome about her is she advocates for herself if she doesn't understand.
Absolutely.
She'll, make it known like, what are you saying? Like,
Hmm.
so that's good. Because I feel like the level 1 stuff, she's past it now.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. She's definitely, if we were to look at this year's scores, which we don't have yet, obviously, um, she would definitely be in that level 2, level 3 range in my opinion
Exactly.
as well. So I think you're right on in that estimation of her.
And then so with speaking, at the beginning, again, I don't know if because she's kind of a shy student, I don't know if maybe she just wasn't as, comfortable with me at the very beginning. So at the
No,
beginning,
she's shy.
she only really expressed her basic needs. She knew some pre-taught words and vocabulary and things that she could use to express her needs. And she could answer yes or no questions. And, with modeling and pictures, she could talk about everyday objects.
Hmm.
But now I see her even like above level 2. She's not asking just simple questions, but like more abstract at some point. And, she's able to ask, questions about things that she's reading about and things that she's learning about. Um, and she's restating content based facts. She's describing pictures and events and objects. And she used very good vocabulary. She's building a good, not only social vocabulary, but I feel academic vocabulary too.
Absolutely.
Um, and the thing that I thought was interesting was when I looked at her scores with her reading, she was level 3. And I think that's still around where she is with some level 4 stuff. She's able to interpret information from data and charts and graphs very easily, and I'm sure you see that in math. She can find the main idea and some details that support the main idea in usual uh, leveled material, and I'm teaching a level 2 material.
Right.
And she does really well with that. That's it, like right at her level.
Hmm.
Um, she can sequence events, and she uses the context clues to not only of illustrations to determine meanings of words, but she uses context clues in sentences um, to find the meanings of words. And that's why I think she goes up into that level 4 where she can sees different features of different genres and stuff. And she definitely likes fairy tales.
Yeah.
But she's not a big fan of the informational text, but she does like historical text too. But she's able to see the different types of writing features in each of those.
Hmm.
Um, and she, if given graphic organizers, she can use it for different types of genres as well.
Hmm.
So that's how she's doing for reading. And then for writing, Yeah, I think she's even boosted up into a level 3 kind of thing, even though she was testing in at a level 1. But right now, I feel like mostly she's performing at a level 2, like a high level 2, into that developing stage of a level 3,
Mm-hmm.
because she really succeeds if she's able to kind of demonstrate the content that she knows in kind of short things, kind of like lists or labels with peers, filling in word blanks and sentences, and word walls and graphic organizers. But then, I mean, you'll see with her writing today, she's able to put together a narrative text, and she's
Mm-hmm.
really stringing sentences together. Um, and that's why I think she is really in that level 3 of development, not the level 1.
Right.
Right. So yeah,
That looks good.
yeah. So
She's
that's
made crazy growth this year.
she is to. It surprised me when I first looked at the. Do you remember how Barb gave out all the Weta can do descriptors and with all the kids' names in it at the
I have
beginning of the
that
year?
in front of me right now.
Yeah. Um, it was just crazy to see that that's where she was coming into us, like into our classes with that kind of knowledge and how far she is now, um, in comparison. So,
I think something that would be good, and this is just kind of off topic and just building based, is to sit down once we get this in the fall to then sit down in middle of year after Scantron and kind of we put them on this
mhm.
chart and kind of see where we have them in comparison, just to kind of get an idea of where we're seeing them move to and where we can push them into that next those next categories, because I think sometimes we get this great information and then we don't go back and visit it again
Yeah,
as a building. I mean, obviously we do as teachers on a daily basis, and thinking about their abilities and where they're at and what are the next steps, but to really sit down and do that with all of our ELLs would be, I think, very beneficial.
I think it would be too, because it would also allow us to see, like even just at the beginning of the year when we were given the Weta can do descriptors, we were able to get a good baseline of where they were,
Mm-hmm.
and to see, oh wow, like they need these kind of supports. I would have never thought that of them because, kind of like, if we were looking at Julia's, if I would have seen this at the beginning of the year, and to where she is now, I would have been like, no way, she doesn't need those anymore because she's so far progressed.
Yeah,
And it's good to see what kind of things you can implement to make sure those progressions happen, if that makes sense.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but she's just doing great. And I think it kind of goes back to her home environment of, having that kind of family that's very encouraging.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then I guess it's my turn.
Yes. So you can just talk. I know there's probably a lot to talk about because,
I felt like I couldn't have. Um, there was a lot of information as I was reading through the text. So
yeah, you definitely one that you have to like kind of flip around and,
yeah, and there's a lot of different sections, and the present tense is around a lot of different areas.
yeah,
So
yeah. I just learned so much. Like this course has just really opened me up to how complex English is. And
yeah, and so many things that I've taken for granted
yeah,
that I know just based on being a native speaker, that we just hear it and it's wrong, and then we don't know necessarily why. So it's good to get those whys so that we can fix those and
exactly.
explain that to kids. So,
Yeah. Alrighty.
all right. So obviously we're doing present tense and the simple present tense. So we have simple present, present progressive, present perfect, and present perfect progressive. So, so we have the singular I walk, we walk, plural we walk. Um, and then as we add that he, she, it walks thing,
Mhm.
um, so we have the verb plus the verb or the verb plus s.
Mhm.
And the s is always for the third person.
Okay.
So some common mistakes that ELLs make with that is the verb plus s is only when he, she, or it, the third person singular. So they'll say Laura cook scrambled eggs. So they'll leave that off instead of Laura cooks scrambled eggs.
Okay.
Um, and with that, also, um, English is ridiculous, and you have to drop the Y to add the IES.
Yeah.
Remembering when to change cry to cries and all those times where we drop the Y and add IES instead of just adding the S.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that you just have to explicitly teach to
Right.
kids. And I know our DLI, we spent like 3 weeks on, you know, this in the level 2
Mm-hmm.
content. And even still, it's so hard for kids.
Right. No, yeah, it's we still go back to it all the time for sure. Um, and we don't use the be with verbs in the simple present tense. So we don't say I am walk to school every day. Um, we use the I walk to school every day. So we use that. Excuse me. That we don't use that be verb like we would in other times.
Yeah, probably be accenting these kind of important words. He, she.
Yeah, good idea. I like that in the notes.
Okay.
I'm not helping very much with the notes today.
Oh, don't worry, because you're talking right now.
Okay. So then we'll jump down with the present progressive. So this is when we do use the am is are. So that to be am is are plus the verb plus the ing.
Okay. And is that's verb ing, right?
Yeah. So that verb plus the ing, um, we use the am is or are according to the subject. So we have to make sure that students are using the correct um, am is are, going back to last week's discussion um, with that. And so then we look at that, and a lot of it looked like it was spelling errors that occurred, or some of it could be spelling errors where you have to drop the e before adding ing,
Mm-hmm.
um, or the double consonant, you know.
Yeah, so a lot of spelling errors that can
Mm-hmm.
occur from it.
So being cognizant of the um, spelling and teaching those spelling rules to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some of the errors that they talked about is they don't use the ing.
Oh yeah. I'm so used to Word where it just I don't use commas very much in my typing, and I mean
Oh,
apostrophes in my typing, and Word usually just fixes it.
right. They just, yep. They forget to use the be before it. So like they say, my baby brother crying now instead of my baby brother is crying, and you leaving out that be verb.
Or, so go in brackets.
And then sometimes students will use the present progressive um, when it doesn't show own or action.
Okay.
Like I am owning two cars instead of I own two cars. So they use that. They use the ing when it's not necessary, when it's not using an action.
Um, when it doesn't have to show an action.
Correct.
Okay.
So, like walking, we have that action, so they add the ing. Where like if someone owns something, they're not necessarily doing anything; they just own it.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry, Mike.
love, need, want. We're not.
Okay. So when the verb doesn't. Okay.
Next, present perfect. I'm glad you mapped this all out on the notes. This is perfect.
So yeah, I mean, when I was reading it, I needed to break it apart a little bit.
No, yeah, this is perfect because that's exactly how I had it in my mind. So,
Awesome.
um, so then we look at the present perfect tense. So we use this for an action that began in the past but is still now true, and it may or may not continue. So it happened in the past, it started in the past, but it is still happening right now.
Okay.
Um, so that I have walked, we use the have has in this. This one's a little confusing to me because then you add the ed like in a past tense. We use that past participle. So have, or has, according to the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And then we add the ed. So it looks like a past tense verb, but it is the present perfect tense.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely had to reread that section a couple times because
Yeah. So you're
because
like, wait a second. So some common mistakes, they don't use the have or has beforehand. So their example in the book, I was born here and will die here. I lived here my whole life. I was born here and will die here. I have lived here my whole life. So um, we use the I have lived. They did live and they are still living in the same place.
what page is that on so I can go back and look at it and type it in so we can keep moving. 10.
I can stop.
Oh no, it's okay. I can type it back in a little bit. It's just
So it's just using, um, they don't use the have or had.
okay. What was the example again?
Um, they say, I lived here my whole life instead of I have lived here my whole
Oh,
life.
okay. So they're kind of leaving out that have word. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And then another thing that they do is they use the wrong have or has, like they don't match the subject with the have or has.
Okay.
So you wouldn't say Sarah have, you say Sarah has.
Yeah.
Um,
Golden. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Then we have the present perfect tense. So this is it happened in the past with an emphasis on it still happening. So we use that ing again.
Mhm.
I have been walking. We have been walking. So we have has plus the been and then the verb ing.
Oh, goodness. So it's has or has.
Have or has plus been plus the verb, and then we add the ing.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But it's interesting because you reflect upon, like, since we're both, native speakers, it's kind of intuitive.
hmm
But, oh, breaking it apart.
yeah. And so Ben never changes in this sense. And so the common mistakes, they just don't use have or has. I've been waiting. And I've heard that in my classroom. I've been waiting, Mr. Adams. Why haven't you been working? Well, I've been waiting for your help.
Yeah. I hear that all the time.
So, um,
Mhm.
I have been. So, and then they'll use the present progressive. I am waiting for the bus instead of I have been waiting.
Yeah. Okay. You have very good examples.
I'm just taking them from the book. Thank you. Give credit where credit is due, I guess. Um, and then negative forms of the verbs. So I am not, I do not, all those have not.
Hmm.
So the biggest thing that we talk about is that they either use no instead of not or does not.
Okay, so no,
Mm-hmm.
they is does not. Okay. Yeah.
Um, or they do not use am, is, not, or are not. So many of these things I just take for granted.
Yeah, it just there's a science behind it. You realize there's a science behind language. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's probably because the previous weeks we've been working with things that are relatively easy to be like, oh yeah, like I understand how we apply this, but this has so many complex layers of it that it's hard to break it apart to be like, well, how am I going to teach this one little part of it? How do I
Right.
teach the have with the ed ending in this present, instead of a has with the ed ending in this kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um, so
you've done such a good job
that
covering it that we could even move on, I feel.
is that good?
Yeah.
Because I went into some. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Negative forms. Okay.
um,
Phew.
ooh, yes. Um, so I guess we can move over to Julia said, I mean, her samples. Um, and the longer one is how I came to be. That's we're kind of trying to work on, like an imaginative, like writing. And
Mm-hmm.
her prompt was about, if you had to be the principal for the day, like what would you do?
I
Um,
like that.
and then the other one was just a picture prompt one, that one of the ones that Carrie sent out in a while back. And it's this scary monster under the bed kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was a free write, and this is a first. And then her other one about being a principal is more her first draft of what she's going to continue working on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, they're both very rough, and
Oh,
because
that's
we
good
didn't have
though.
time to plan them. But like that's with all kids writing too, I feel so.
Yeah, that's good though. It's good to look at them just rough and not kind of edit it up.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I like quickly read through it before, and I think she writes how she speaks a lot of the time. It's very uh, she doesn't take time to process all the right things, but she works hard at trying to process them. The proper grammar and stuff.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So I guess we could start on the smaller one, maybe.
Okay.
The monster under the bed.
Once upon a time.
Yeah. So that again, like that's how she says it, and it's cute. But I'll have to
Mhm.
show her once upon a time. Well, in the first sentence, when she says she was sleeping, she uses a present. Sorry, I have to look back at which one has the ing. The
The
present
present
progressive,
progressive.
and she uses it correctly. She was sleeping. So it seems, because I think present progressive is one of the kind of earlier stages, um, that it seems like she's doing it right there.
Mm-hmm. No, that was good. Dream about a monster.
Mm. She had a bad dream, yeah. Which one was had? But then sorry, I have to
I
keep
think
looking back with the
well,
ED.
that to me is like a good past tense. She had a bad dream.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But then going down a little bit, kind of talking about the past tense of it. She This is on like what, the one, two, three, four, like the fifth line down. It says she turned the lights on. She should have said, what's the one with the ed ending? She turned the lights on.
uh-huh. She could have even said she turns the light on.
Yeah,
As it's happening right then and there, she turns in that simple present tense
yeah.
of happening right now. She turns the light on. So she could have done that as well. The lights on.
She should have had sleep. I'm going to go back and write simple present, but I'm going to abbreviate it for now.
And then the next sentence, she screamed.
Yeah, she screamed instead. So she's working really well with, verbs in this, but it's kind of hard, um, kind of switching between, and I think it's probably because she's, I think, in this story depicting a time that of course never happened, but like as if it happened kind of in the past a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But she's acting as if it's happening now too in some
Right.
sentences. So she's switching between, past um, and present time.
Right. And I think she definitely could have said she screams there to
Mm-hmm.
do that simple present tense. She screamed,
Yeah.
comma, then the monster said,
What?
watch out.
Well, I was thinking,
Oh,
I think maybe how I get out of here? How do I get out of here?
mm-hmm.
I think that's what she's asking. And then in her kind of like, you are a bad monster? I think she's trying to maybe form a question of like, are you a bad monster?
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm.
Um, so she screams.
Not exactly with the questions. When you form questions, did I remember reading about that? Hold on.
Oh, and the verbs.
Yeah. It says, so for simple present, it's like a do plus I, you, we, they verb.
Mm-hmm.
So would would she have omitted the do? And the girl said, why you look scary. Maybe she meant why do you look scary? So
Mm-hmm.
she do you see what I'm talking about? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um that would be, I guess a simple present question form error. Hmm.
Yeah. So that's a why do you look so scary? So that would be a good teaching point to her to
Yeah.
form the question
Mm-hmm.
on that of that simple present.
Mm-hmm.
So after looking at this, and this kind of goes down to some individual teaching points for her, is focusing on that just even just the basic simple present tense for her, where you add the S to match the subject. She screams. Um, she turns the light on, and kind of focusing on when do you add the S in a um, simple present tense,
Yeah.
and when the verb just can stand on its own and matching the subject to the simple. I think that's the first step in her writing, is in this piece anyway.
Yeah.
Um, before we move on to any of the, you know, she is walking and that simple present progressive and all of that stuff is just having her master that simple present tense of
Yeah.
when do you add the S, when is it just the verb, and kind of going in that direction.
I think that's a really good idea because there's multiple times where she didn't add that S that would have
Mm-hmm.
made it more
She
cohesive.
turned, yeah, she turned, she screamed. When do we add the S? What is happening right now?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a very good idea. I
and
guess we
something
can. Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going.
maybe she could, like in a small group, use those to form sentences like, um, because it's she screams, or she could use other people in the group. He picks up the pencil and like using those verbs to show what the students are doing right then and there in the small group.
Yeah.
He reads the story.
Yeah, yeah, that could be something that would be very good for a small group where they pick an action and then maybe they write their action and they say their action to the group.
He
Um,
throws the ball. Um,
yeah,
Marks on
because
the
it's
picture.
happening right this
Mhm.
second, you know.
And to explain that so that she's seeing when it's he, she, that third person,
Hmm.
we add the S. He, she, it. So focusing on that. He, she, it walks.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good job. I like that. And I guess we'll get to the instructional strategies because that could go hand in hand with the whole group activity that was talked about in the book. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay. Sorry, I just,
Um,
after looking at that, I wanted to get those down so we didn't,
no, very smart
so I didn't forget them.
because there was a trend in her writing that needs to
Mm-hmm.
be addressed. So I guess we can switch over to the principle of a for the day.
Okay.
Um,
It could be Brian taking a break to the mountains, you
yeah,
know.
I was just reading that too. I was like, good for her. She knows a little bit about Brian. Um, it's funny because she switches. You know how this was weeks ago, but switching between there was an error between switching between he and her.
I just saw that too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Back to our pronoun week.
exactly.
What we've done in the past doesn't go unnoticed.
Yes. Why me? I have to. Um, I guess down here on the when she's saying like, "Why are you choosing me to be in charge?" It says, I guess then he, Mr. Casino's replying, saying like, "Because because all your classmates are done 100 work, and you have done 101." I think she maybe all your classmates have done 100. Would that be a present perfect?
Mm-hmm. Using the
Yeah,
have.
a have instead of are done. Hmm. I'll throw that in.
And she could even take that to that past participle.
Yeah.
Have been doing 101%, so that
Okay.
it, you know, she has been doing it and she is continuing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have been doing 101%.
But could really be have done or have been doing.
Either way, for sure. Just like you said it, or it could be the other way, for sure. Um, in this writing, it seems like she is definitely seeing this experience as happening in the past. You see, I was thinking,
Yeah.
and I said, Mr. Casina, okay, so tomorrow I will let you know. It's more of a almost like a storytelling that happened in the past for her.
Yeah.
I like that she's spelling cocina like the kitchen in
Yeah,
Spanish.
exactly. It was so funny because she actually told me, she's like, "Do you know what his name means in Spanish?" And I was like, "Kitchen." And
Mr. Kitchen. Um, Down about halfway, it says, okay, so tomorrow I will let you a paper that said all you have to do.
yeah, do you think maybe like a gift? What do you think?
Mhm. Or I will let you know on a paper. Um,
Oh goodness. What is exactly that she says? Tomorrow I will let you a paper. I guess what could she have and then it goes on even that said maybe like all the things you have to do. She kind of admitted that.
that S again.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, I'm trying to see. Down farther, it's kind of by like the last star, the top of the last. Oh wait, no, not the last star. The third star down. It says, "Put in the CD, then you have to ring the bells." So she used the right. What would that be? Present perfect progressive tense.
Have
Of
to,
the
yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to. Um, which I think that would be a kind of hard thing to do, but she shows that she has the capability to do it there.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's a good. I jumped right over that, but you're absolutely right. Have to ring the bell. Perfect. Um,
If is
I see then it is snowing or raining. Put
Yeah,
the
she kind of forgot that it.
hmm so using that present progressive. Then it is snowing or raining.
Mhm. Then
Okay. I think we've done a good job of identifying some errors.
yeah, and I
And
think
then
also we see some themes in her errors, which is helpful to see.
hmm
All right, so I guess for the instructional suggestions, I already put in, and I really like the idea that kind of tied into your individual working of like focusing on simple present tensing and adding the S to the verb.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, for the whole group, a really cool idea that the book gave was the sentences where there's just a simple action, you know, walks, dance, like all that, just actual actions of verbs.
Mm-hmm.
And having students have to work on, a student acting it out first. And then from there, the students have to like go on and say, like, she is walking, they are dancing, like, so you could work with, singular um, verbs, or two people could be doing the actions, and then you could start throwing in like the they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that one a lot too. I thought that was a good idea too.
Um,
The other one, whole group, that was they started with something like um, something that happened in the past is still happening. So they gave like I work at this company, but um, the students could be like um, am a student at Tennyson. I began in August, and that's still happening. Um, I have been at Tennyson since kindergarten, or working on that. Like, yeah, it happened in the past, but it's still happening. You still are a student just because you started in the past. It's still happening right now. You're still a student.
yeah.
Yes.
What was it? I have been at Tennyson like
Uh,
since, or I've been at
like
Tennyson.
I've been at Tennyson since August, or since, I guess it wouldn't be
Like,
since.
I guess for Julio, it would be like second grade.
Yeah, since second grade.
Yeah. And that's them having to work through all the different tenses that come together in that.
Yeah, and
So,
things that did happen in the past, but it is still happening.
mm-hmm. um, I like their newspaper idea that they brought up, but I feel the thing about a newspaper that might be hard with some of our students is just the complexity of it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the News ELA website,
Mm-hmm.
which you can pick a Lexile level for your students. That would be a good kind of substitute for a newspaper if like we could find relevant news articles to them, and then go through it and work with where's the present perfect tense in the opening paragraph, kind of thing, because that's when they're usually giving that background. um, but I
The
think
website again.
it's called News ELA. Have you ever used it?
I have not used it specifically, but I have gone to it, and I haven't used it with my students. I've gone to it and looked at it, but
Mm-hmm. I've used it a couple times, and it's pretty cool. Um, but it's definitely also, how we switch classes. It's one that you wish you could have like your social studies class be there too, because you could tie it, you can just use it for um, across contents and for literacy. And I realize, stuff I'm teaching my kids in social studies that would be relevant to like um, to read in a literature class too.
yeah, that cross curricular.
So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, in small group, kind of like you were saying before, using those simple present tense to add the S, um, and kind of acting it out and having them maybe do that systematic I like to give kids time to process what they're going to say before they actually have to say it kind of out loud if they're a little insecure about their language. So maybe having them write it like the sentence that they're describing out um,
Mm,
before they have to say it.
yeah. And maybe that's where you also have some sentence frames like the video that they can build their sentence frames from that, or sentences from the sentence frames so that they can use those to help them.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah, I think with this also kind of like relating back to our chapter of how we do our corrective feed, like comments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess that would be like a whole group thing. I guess you wouldn't have to do it for a whole group, but on the individual level, when you hear the mistakes in um, the student's language or you see it in their writing, just having a good way to address it.
Mm-hmm.
What was
That
what was it? It was like meta. I mean,
meta-linguistic comments.
yeah, yeah. Um, to kind of just spark that um, thought process. I know I kind of commented about it in my post. Um, but when working with kind of like prefixes and suffixes, like the ing ending, I like to tie movement with it. So my example was kind of like if I hear a kid say like, well, this is something I want to implement, in my classroom more. I hear kids say like they'll point at like a woman walking a dog or something if there's dogs outside, and they'll be like, she walked the dog, instead of saying like she is walking the dog,
Mm-hmm.
um, and tying like a physical movement to like, so for fast, when you're doing the ing endings, you have to like kind of like point to it in front of you, and you're saying like happening right now, and they have to like point at the thing. Um, but working with physical movements that can maybe prompt them to reevaluate their language to say,
Absolutely.
well, what happens when it's happening right now, and then they'll be like, oh, she's walking the dog. um, I don't know how to kind of summarize that, so um,
I
that's
like
more
that
what a
though.
group kind of thing.
That meta-linguistic feedback. Yeah, I pulled it up here on page 140.
Okay.
Um, and you're asking them like they point to the nature of the error, but you point that they made an error, but you're asking them more like why was that an error, and asking them to elicit that information.
So it allows students to recognize there's an error and then
And
fix
then
the error.
process it without without recasting or giving them the answer. That you're asking them to dig into their thoughts about and solve why it's wrong themselves. Good, I like that.
I think that's just something because I don't know, the last chapter I just realized how I just recast so much and how that's not as beneficial as I would hope. so I'm
I
hopefully,
agree.
um,
Um, yeah, and I thought about it when I read it that or maybe it was in the video from um, kind of the week overview
mhm.
the professor from Regis that kind of goes through that he when you say something and someone recasts it, unless you're really thinking about how you said it and
Yeah,
that mine doesn't match yours, that you're not really thinking about how that recast affects you because you just have moved on because
yeah.
you said it and then they said it, but you're not saying, well, did my mine match theirs?
Mhm.
Um, so that yeah, the
You
recast.
have to make students aware of their errors for them to, find the error within their own language.
Mhm. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we kind of just got on a tangent. We'll come back to more instructional kind of strategies, but I think that metalinguistic feedback will really help.
Yeah, and I think that's an instructional strategy, making ourselves aware of how we correct students is, I mean, just an individual or a small group of correcting that feedback and getting ourselves away from that um, recast and into the explicit correction and the metalinguistic feedback. I
Yeah,
think those are good instructional strategies that maybe not maybe isn't into a direct lesson, but is into the
yeah,
small group setting so that we use that um, those explicit correction and the metalinguistic feedback to get the errors.
yeah.
I think that's good. I don't think that was a
You're right. It probably wasn't that big of a tangent because it is relevant.
yeah. I don't think it was a bad tangent to get into.
Um, so I guess with also small group, kind of bridging off of that um, news, Ela kind of like looking for things, maybe in a small group setting, providing examples of ways you can convert, w- providing examples with errors in it. So like type up a quick paragraph and providing examples that have the errors and going through it and working through the errors and finding them
Mm-hmm.
together, and then maybe then having them analyze their own work for errors on specific tasks, like I think, starting with, something as common as the S at the end or adding the ing for some, starting with the simple present to the the present progressive kind of
Mm-hmm.
verbs. Um, just so students can be aware of it and then analyze their own work after it. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
What would that be like?
I would say just
Full errors.
yeah.
Um,
Like sample errors in a text in a sample text and finding those errors and correcting them.
I think that would be a definite small group setting because I'm sure all of the kids, working, some might be working on the sample, the simple present, and some might be working on a sample that has, present progressive. So,
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
ooh,
Something that I'm adding to small group is maybe like a tree map where you go through all each category has one, and you could even just use the I walk and talk about that, and then I am walking, and the way the book I have walked, I have been walking, and go through all of those, and then go to the next line and do one, and so that they match and they can see how it changes as they progress through the present tense.
I think that's a brilliant idea because that's providing a graphic organizer for them. So that's a visual, and then you have the auditory, like you hearing it by talking about it and they're communicating about it, and then they could take it back and use it with like have it as a reference for them.
Mhm.
That's a really, really good idea. I like that a lot. Because the tree map is really good at breaking apart materials into, little chunks. It chunks it nicely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and for Julia's small group stuff, we said the focus on simple present tense to add the S. I think that's a good focus for her to start. I wouldn't, and then just building on some of the small group things individually with her. I wouldn't want to add much more to that, I don't think.
Because I feel like if we added more, I mean, I think this is a lot to process already.
And then if
And
you're getting her small group, whole group, and then that individual group, I mean, you're obviously going to extend that small group and whole group stuff to her individually.
yeah.
So,
And I feel like if we introduced more than just, that concept, um, without a lot of time for her to really, solidify her knowledge on just, the simple present tense, adding the S, um, that it'll lead to confusion actually if we teach too much. So, yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think we've wrapped it up pretty nicely with, the can-do descriptors, and you did such a wonderful job with the ELL errors that are common in their work, and we analyzed and saw a good amount of things that she shows she has skills on and she can do in her writing, but then things that she needs improvement on. And I think we have some solid next steps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that tree map idea is a really, really good one.
I
Like,
like
I want to already go and do it in my class.
that.
So
Sweet.
awesome.
Well, thanks for getting up early and doing this with me today.
Thank you for accommodating to having to change the day.
Oh no, that's good. And then maybe well next week we can do regular, and then maybe that last week we can try to, and maybe even next weekend we can try to do two of these. So that
Ooh,
way that final week we don't have the final essay and
and yes,
PLC group. We can kind of knock both of them out if
that
that's
would be wonderful. I like that idea.
a Saturday morning, Sunday morning type of deal.
Hmm.
Try to knock both of them out so that we can that last weekend we can just focus on the final and not worry about
Yeah, it would
PLC.
take it off our plate.
Yeah, that sound all right to you?
That sounds perfect. We'll make it a plan.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. I will get edited. Even though, thank you so much for helping with these because they seem pretty good. I'll go through and kind of tailor them.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Stay warm.
You too. All right. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.